The sponsor hired me to date her son. When the contract ended, she gave one condition: break up smoothly, without hurting him. Honestly, she was overthinking it. Clifford Finkelstein had always been so reluctant during our relationship. I half expected him to throw a party the day we broke up. I stepped confidently into character, ready to play my part. I did a tarot reading, I declared dramatically. It says our fate has run its course. If we don't break up, we'll face a disaster soaked in blood. He didn't even lift his head. I pressed on. Look at this pig trotter. It forks in two. A sign from the heavens. We're meant to part ways. He glanced up, eyes icy and indifferent. We're just too different, I added. I use a 3x3 keypad. You use a full QWERTY. We're from different worlds. Let's break up. Clifford finally put down his phone. His dark, unfathomable gaze locked onto mine. His voice came low and rough. Give me one more lousy excuse like that, and I'll take off one piece of your clothing. I froze. Wait. Wasn't he supposed to be the cold, brooding gentleman? When did he turn into a pervert? Welcome to History channel. Subscribe to follow all our latest adventures. Story begins. When the message from the sponsor arrived, I was standing in the grand kitchen of Clifford Finkelstein's mansion, patiently simmering a pot of soup for him. My phone lit up with a brief but pointed message. Time's up. Break up with Clifford within a month. Remember, do not let him get hurt. The corners of my mouth nearly twitched up uncontrollably. I quickly tapped back. Got it. Finally. The final payment was in sight. A year ago, Madame Finkelstein came to me with an offer I couldn't refuse. Her price? Generous. Her request? Simple. Date her son, Clifford Finkelstein. The contract came in 3 parts. 1 payment upon signing, 1 upon successfully entering a relationship with Clifford, and the final one after a clean, harmless breakup. Clifford's soup's ready. I brought the bowl to the table and called toward his study. He appeared shortly after, draped in a simple black robe that fit him like it was tailored by a Milanese designer. With his sharp bone structure and cold, restrained gaze, he looked like a model who had wandered off a high-fashion runway. He sat across from me in silence, sipping spoonfuls of soup while browsing the news on his phone. This was our usual dynamic. He provided the silence, and I filled it with noise. Every conversation, every interaction, it was as if I were performing a one-woman show. But I'd long gotten used to that. Looking back, my journey to win this man had been anything but easy. When Madame Finkelstein first approached me, she wore a face full of worry. Her son, she said, had never even held hands with a girl. Worse still, she had once caught Clifford sleeping in the same bed as his best male friend. Terrified that the Finkelstein family name might not be passed on, she sought immediate intervention. She needed a woman, any woman, who could teach her son how to date. That's where I came in. I devised a full-on tactical campaign. Accidental run-ins, staged mishaps, relentless pursuit. But none of it worked. Clifford treated me like air. Until that car accident changed everything. He lay in a VIP hospital bed, his body battered and immobile. The icy, aloof aristocrat had become a helpless lamb awaiting slaughter. I delivered meals to him every day, never missing a beat. He refused to eat, so I pried his mouth open with a spoon. I convinced Madame Finkelstein not to hire a nurse, leaving all the care, bathing, changing, feeding, to me. If you don't want to stink, Clifford, you'll have to behave, I warned, pressing a warm towel to his skin under the weight of his frosty glare. When he refused his medicine, I lost my temper and kissed him right then and there. What was he going to do? He couldn't even lift a hand to push me away. Clifford Finkelstein, every time you reject me, I'll kiss you again. Over time, his gaze shifted, from icy, to shocked, to numb, and finally to something that looked a lot like reluctant acceptance. On the day he was discharged, sitting in his wheelchair while I bustled around packing up, he suddenly asked, "All this effort, is it because you want to be my girlfriend?" I nodded eagerly. Yes, that's exactly it. He went quiet for a long moment, then sighed like he'd just agreed to something terribly burdensome. Fine. I'll go along with it. And just like that, I earned the second installment. Now, only the simplest part remained. It wasn't a real romance to begin with. He barely agreed to date me. A breakup should feel like freedom to him. He was probably looking forward to this moment more than I was. I glanced at the man sitting across from me, expression still as blank as ever, and brimmed with confidence. As long as I gave him a reason that didn't bruise his ego, we'd be done in a week. I could take the money and walk away clean. That night, Clifford was in the study, focused on work. I sat on the carpet beside his desk, holding a newly bought tarot deck, pretending to murmur to myself, just loud enough for him to hear. Everyone's doing these lately. Let me see what fate has in store for me and my dear Clifford. I kept sneaking glances at him as I shuffled, cut, and arranged the cards with dramatic flair. Then, I drew the first card and gasped. Clamping a hand over my mouth, I widened my eyes theatrically, letting out a sharp, fearful inhale. Hooked. He glanced up from his stack of paperwork. What happened? Gotcha. I slipped right into character, pointing at the card with trembling fingers, letting my voice waver as if on the edge of breaking. Darling. I just did a love reading for us and... I paused, summoning a rush of fake emotions, then squeezed out 2 perfectly timed tears. It says, we're cursed. The cards say our bond has run its course. If we don't separate now, your future will be marked by bloodshed. I buried my face in my hands and let out a few soft sobs, complete with quivering shoulders and delicate little sniffles. Clifford Finkelstein's deep-set eyes rested on me for a few quiet seconds. Then, his lips pressed into a thin line. Without a word, he finally set down the pen in his hand and began walking toward me. Yes, he was coming to comfort me. My breakup plan was already halfway to success. Suppressing the triumphant smirk tugging at my lips, I forced my sobs to grow more sorrowful. Darling, I choked. Even though it hurts so much for your safety, I think we really ought to. His tall figure loomed over me. But instead of kneeling down to comfort me as I imagined, he bent over and plucked a card off the floor with his long, graceful fingers. This tarot deck, he said flatly. It's fake, isn't it? Ha! My sobbing stopped mid-wail. He held the card up to my face, pointing at the misaligned print with clinical detachment. Poor quality. Incorrect imagery. Mass-produced junk. Before I could even gather a reply, Clifford had already collected the remaining cards off the rug, walked back to his desk, and with cold practiced efficiency, fed the entire deck, my beautiful escape plan, straight into the paper shredder. Then he turned, looked down at me still dazed on the floor, and delivered a parting blow in that cool, clipped tone of his. If you've got time for this nonsense, try reading a real book. The next day, I sat at my workstation, deep in reflection over the spectacular failure of last night's tarot breakup strategy. The conclusion? Too rushed. Too cheap. Determined to learn from the best, I opened the Breakup Masters discussion group while pretending to focus on spreadsheets, scrolling through theoretical strategies. One post in particular caught my eye. Pretend you're an alien being summoned back to your home planet. Guaranteed to work. While I was seriously contemplating the feasibility of a sci-fi breakup, the office gossip crew started buzzing in the break room. Hey, did you hear? This year's annual party theme is a vintage ball. Anyone got a dance partner yet? Speaking of, who do you think Mr. Finkelstein's going with? Of course, by Mr. Finkelstein, they meant Clifford. Back when I graduated college, my resume had vanished into the void, until Madame Finkelstein swooped in out of nowhere with a bizarre job offer. And once I won over Clifford, he grew tired of me trailing after him all day, doing nothing but experimenting with soup recipes and loitering behind him like a stray. In his words, Lilith, don't you have anything else to do with your life? Next thing I knew, he threw me into his company as a run-of-the-mill admin signed me up for an endless rotation of workshops and training sessions under the guise of self-development. When in reality, he just wanted me too busy to harass him. Still, we kept our underground relationship well hidden. Nearly zero contact at work. After all, we were breaking up soon. Why give the office any juicy gossip to chew on? But doesn't Mr. Finkelstein skip the party every year, claiming he doesn't dance? one colleague asked. This time's different, someone replied. Last year, Madam Finkelstein swore in front of the entire executive team that he will attend this year's ball. No excuses. Oh my God, who's going to be his date then? The room buzzed with speculation. I bet it's Vice President Smith's daughter. I saw her visit the office recently. That aura? Flawless. I'm putting money on Susan from marketing. Everyone says she's the prettiest in the whole company, and she actually can dance. Later at lunch, I was quietly eating in the cafeteria, head down over my food, when a shadow fell over my tray. Hey, Lilith. I looked up to see William Cheen, the team lead from the engineering department. He was the gentle type, black-rimmed glasses, soft-spoken and kind-eyed. William? What's up? He scratched his head, a bit sheepish. About the company ball. Have you found a partner for the opening dance yet? If not, would you consider going with me? I froze mid-chew, a bite of meat still in my mouth. The annual ball? How the hell was I supposed to know if I'd still even be here by then? If next week's breakup mission succeeded, I'd vanish from this company faster than a magician's rabbit. I was just trying to figure out how to gently let him down when William suddenly straightened up, posture tense. Clifford, Mr. Finkelstein. I turned and saw Clifford walking toward us, expression unreadable as ever. I instantly dropped my head, pretending to focus intently on my lunch. He walked past us without so much as a glance. I had just begun to exhale in relief when I heard his voice behind me. Sharp, composed, and completely unexpected. Lilith Hillenberg. Come to my office. The entire cafeteria fell into stunned silence, as if someone had hit a mute button on the world. I slowly set my chopsticks down and, under the watchful eyes of the entire company, slunk off behind him like a student caught cheating on a test. The moment we stepped into his office, I shut the door and hissed through gritted teeth. Clifford Finkelstein. What the hell was that? Calling me out like that in front of everyone? He glanced up at me with mild disinterest. Is there a problem? A big one. I threw my hands on my hips, fuming. Do you have any idea how fast gossip travels around this place? You doing that, it's practically an invitation for people to start making up stories. I was trying to protect him, obviously. No way would he want people sniffing around and finding out about our fake relationship. But explaining that to someone as emotionally tone-deaf as him? Useless. I exhaled and shifted gears. Anyway, what do you want? He pulled a brochure from his drawer and slid it across the desk. Go learn to dance. Huh. Once you've learned, teach me, he added, as if this were the most obvious thing in the world. It clicked. The annual ball? He gave a curt nod. Why not just sign up for a class yourself? There are professional instructors out there, you know. The words flew out of my mouth before I could stop them. Clifford's expression darkened. You want me to go dancing with some other woman? Wah, well, it's a dance class. Of course you need a partner. My voice grew smaller with every word as the storm cloud on his face deepened. He set his pen down with a distinct thud. You'll do. I rolled my eyes, muttered an okay, and turned to leave. Rich people and their weird rules. But before I could make it to the door, he called after me again. That guy from earlier. Who is he? Who? The shifty-looking one. Sat across from you. I burst out laughing. His name's William. He just has small eyes, not shifty ones. So Mr. Emotionless did have a sharp tongue after all. Oh, he muttered. Nothing then. Back at my desk, I was immediately bombarded with side eyes and whispers. One of my coworkers rolled her chair up beside me and nudged me with her elbow. What did Mr. Finkelstein want with you alone? I worked overtime last night, I said quickly. He happened to be leaving and saw me still here, so he asked me to print some urgent documents. I just brought them over. She gave a skeptical, oh, but thankfully didn't press further. After work, I followed Clifford's instructions and attended a 2-hour dance class. By the time I dragged my sore, overworked body back to my apartment building, I was hunched over, fishing for my keys in my bag. That's when I noticed a familiar pair of shoes in my periphery. I looked up. Long legs. Expensive trousers. And above them, the immaculately sculpted, emotionless face of Clifford Finkelstein. One hand in his pocket, the other holding a thermal food container. He stood in stark contrast to the chipped paint and rusty stairwell of my building. "You. What are you doing here?" In the past 6 months, aside from the rare ride to my street, he'd never once stepped foot near my apartment. "Waiting for you." His tone was flat. Then he handed me the container. "Dinner." Still dazed, I took it and unlocked the door. He followed me inside. My place was tiny. His polished leather shoes sat awkwardly beside my fuzzy pink bunny slippers. Dinner was elaborate. 4 dishes and a soup. But what caught my eye was the pig's trotter on the plate, split clean in half. A light bulb went off in my head. Oh wow, this pig's foot is in 2 pieces. My grandma used to say that if a couple eats a split pig's trotter, it means they're doomed to break up. As I spoke, I stole a glance at his face, waiting for the perfect dramatic pause. But Clifford just glanced at me like I'd grown 2 heads. "You think pigs are dorymen?" "What?" His eyes rolled, barely, but they did. Then he pulled out his phone, searched something, and shoved the screen in my face. An anatomical diagram of a pig's foot. "The metacarpals and phalanges are naturally separated," he said, deadpan. "It's made of multiple bones. See? Here and here. But the braised pig's feet I eat outside are always whole." "That's for easier chewing," he explained patiently. "Those are deboned. This one's roasted whole." "Oh." I lowered my head and chomped into the pig's foot with renewed bitterness. Well then. Breakup plan, version 2. Also a failure. After dinner, Clifford Finkelstein insisted I teach him how to dance. So I cleared a tiny space in the cramped living room, put on some soft music, and tried to recall what my instructor had taught me. Okay, so, one hand goes here and the other. Before I could finish, he stepped forward, one arm naturally slipping around my waist to pull me closer, the other tightly clasping my hand. My heart skipped a beat. This man usually avoided physical contact like the plague. He rarely held hands for more than 10 seconds. Yet tonight, he was uncharacteristically forward. The distance between us vanished in an instant. I could feel the warmth of his breath brushing against the top of my head. My cheeks began to heat up. "Next step," he murmured, voice low and close to my ear. Left foot, step forward." We began practicing, awkward and a little clumsy. Then, in a moment of misstep, my heel came down hard on his shoe. Ah! Panicking, I shifted to avoid him, lost my balance, and stumbled backward. Clifford reacted quickly, tightening his grip to pull me in, but he'd underestimated the force. I ended up dragging him down with me, and we both collapsed onto the padded floor. When I came to my senses, I realized I was lying completely on top of him. He was flat on his back, one arm still wrapped around my waist, the other braced against the ground. My chest pressed into his, and something, firm and mysterious, pressed against my lower half. Maybe it was the fall. Maybe it was something else. But his perpetually cool, emotionless face was tinged with a suspicious flush. After a few seconds, he averted his eyes awkwardly. "That's enough for today. We'll continue tomorrow." Then, scrambling to his feet, he dusted himself off, adjusted his shirt, and left without another word. Shortly after, I received a message from Madam Finkelstein. "How's it going? Chairman Isaac's daughter just returned from abroad last week. I've scheduled her to meet Clifford soon. You need to hurry." I immediately replied, "Understood. Don't worry. Time for a new strategy." Thinking back, I realized my 2 failed breakup attempts had one fatal flaw. They both came from me. No matter how soft I made the landing, it would always bruise Clifford Finkelstein's pride. The better move? Make him want out. Drive him up the wall. Push him until he begs to be free. And so, I activated clingy girlfriend mode. Monday, 9:30 a.m. He was mid-meeting. I unleashed a text storm. "Babe, what are you doing?" 2 hearts. "Why aren't you replying?" Don't you love me anymore? Crying face. You don't care about me at all. I'm so sad. 5:55. Dozens of messages later he finally replied, in a meeting. Perfect. I pounced. So what if you're in a meeting? Is your meeting more important than me? You have 3 seconds to reply with, baby, I love you, or I'll get mad. To confirm the chaos, I snuck up to the executive floor and peeked through the glass wall. There he was, seated at the head of the table. As one executive finished presenting, he glanced down at his phone. His brows immediately furrowed into a scowl. He was irritated. Mission accomplished. That afternoon, I found a new angle. His secretary walked into his office carrying coffee. I snapped a photo of her back and sent it to him. Why are there so many women near your office? I'm jealous. Fire them all immediately. He replied. Stop. I bombarded him with angry emoji stickers and followed up with, how dare you yell at me because of another woman? You've changed, Clifford Finkelstein. Then I sent him a filtered selfie. Change your profile picture to this one. I want everyone in the company to know you have a girlfriend. He took a long time to reply. Finally, he wrote, be mature. Don't bring personal emotions into work. He was cracking. I could feel it. Just a little more and he'd snap. By the weekend, I fully embraced my drama queen persona. At the crack of dawn, I stormed into his place, dragged him out of bed, and demanded a full day of couple activities. Shopping, manicures, lunch dates. At the restaurant, I ordered the most expensive dishes, took a single bite of each, then pushed them away with a frown. At the nail salon, I dismissed every color he chose as hideous and cycled through every glittery design they had. By evening, on our way back, I stopped a few steps from his front door and groaned dramatically. I'm so tired. My feet hurt. I can't walk anymore. He looked at me exasperated. Then let's sit for a bit. No. I opened my arms and pouted. I want you to carry me. All heads on the street turned toward us. He stared at me for 2 long seconds, then sighed and crouched down in surrender. As I wrapped my arms around his neck and settled onto his broad back, swaying with his every step, I couldn't help but beam. He looked so composed on the outside, but I could practically see the storm of curses brewing behind his eyes. Any day now. Any day. And he'd finally say those magic words. Let's break up. I had been playing the role of the clingy, over-the-top girlfriend for more than a week when, one afternoon, I finally got sick of the company cafeteria and decided to wander off alone in search of real food. I ended up near the upscale shopping mall just down the street. And as I passed a fancy glass-walled restaurant, I caught sight of a familiar figure through the window. Clifford Finkelstein. He was sitting by the window, perfectly composed as always. Across from him sat a woman with long silky hair and an air of quiet elegance. My feet stopped cold. I recognized her immediately from the photos. Lorraine Isaac, the daughter of Chairman Isaac. So, Madame Finkelstein had already set them up? Without thinking, I ducked behind a massive potted plant, peeking out carefully to watch. Lorraine said something, and then it happened. Clifford Finkelstein smiled. It was faint and fleeting, but genuine. The kind of relaxed, easy smile that looked like it had come from somewhere deep inside. In the entire year I'd known him, I could count the number of times he'd smiled at me on one hand. And most of those weren't real smiles, just exasperated indulgence, or something worn like armor to end a conversation. But this was something else entirely. They looked perfect together. Him, with his sharp features and quiet magnetism. Her, graceful and poised. A textbook match, both in looks and in lineage. Turns out, there's no such thing as someone truly cold and untouchable. They just haven't met the right warmth. A strange heaviness lodged in my chest. But then I laughed at myself. Bitterly. What was I even feeling jealous for? I was just a tool. A prop. I never had any real claim on him. This whole thing was always meant to have an expiration date. And maybe that date should be today. That evening, I went to Clifford's place. I cooked a full dinner. every dish one of his favorites. It was probably the last meal I'd ever make for him. I hoped he would at least enjoy it. Dinner was quiet. Unusually so. I didn't fill the silence with my usual chatter. I wanted to leave space for endings. After we ate, he sat on the couch, replying to work messages. The soft glow of his phone lit the sharp lines of his face. His long fingers moved rapidly across the screen. I glanced over and said casually, "You use the full QWERTY keyboard?" "Yeah," he replied, not looking up. "I use the 9-key pad," I continued, pausing just enough to gather myself. I saw online that people who use different input methods usually have a huge generation gap. And when I think about us... I laughed softly, forcing a lightness into my voice. "Yeah, that gap is kinda huge." I looked away. "How about we just let this go?" His fingers froze mid-typing. Silence dropped like a curtain over the room. He slowly set his phone down and looked straight at me. "What are you trying to say?" His voice was calm. Too calm. I fumbled with the hem of my shirt, avoiding his eyes. "You like peace and quiet. I talk like a broken faucet. You read political news. I watch Crayon Shin-chan on repeat." I twisted my fingers, the words barely above a whisper now. "And honestly, I'm tired of chasing after you. Even if we forget personality. Just look at our families. There's no way this could ever end in marriage. So why don't we just part on good terms?" I could feel his stare drilling into me, but I kept my gaze firmly on the floor. "Sorry, Clifford. I really gave you every opportunity to pull the plug. You didn't, so now I have to." It took a long time before he finally responded, his tone tight and unreadable. "Are you joking, or are you serious?" "Serious." I lifted my chin and looked him in the eye, doing my best to look sincere, firm, and final. Time seemed to hold its breath. His jaw clenched. His fists curled tight. Then, after what felt like an eternity, he finally spoke. "Go home." 4 short words. Like a pardon. Like an ending. I stood up, exhaling for what felt like the first time in hours. I put on my coat. At the door, I placed the apartment key he'd given me gently on top of the shoe cabinet. "Goodbye, Clifford Finkelstein." I didn't sleep a wink that night. By dawn, I was up at my desk, typing out my resignation letter. When I got to the office, I took the printed letter straight to my supervisor's office. He was already drowning in work, his phone wedged between his ear and shoulder as he flipped through a stack of papers. The moment he saw me, he waved me off impatiently. "Whatever it is, wait. The company-wide meeting's about to start. I don't have time for you right now." I stood there for a second, letter in hand, then quietly tucked it back into my bag. "Fine. Later then." I headed to the break room, poured myself a cup of hot tea, and leaned against the window. In my head, I was already planning what to do after getting my final payment. Maybe job hunting, maybe a little vacation first. That's when it happened. A shadow passed behind me. Then a greasy, calloused hand, bold, quick, and unmistakably deliberate, grabbed my ass. I froze. The teacup trembled in my hand. I spun around sharply, and there it was, that face. A smirk I'd seen too many times in this building. The balding middle-aged manager. Of course it was him. This wasn't his first offense. Everyone had heard the whispers, how he liked to accidentally brush against new female staff, always in places without cameras. Most women just swallowed it down, afraid of losing their jobs, with no proof to fight back. But today wasn't like before. Today I was done here. And I wasn't scared of anyone. "What the hell are you doing?" I slammed my cup down hard on the counter, pointing straight at him. "You're harassing women in broad daylight. You've got some nerve." My shout cut through the room like a whip. Every head in the office turned. Colleagues began gathering around, murmuring, eyes wide with shock and interest. The manager's face flushed dark red. For a second, he was speechless. Then, realizing how he looked, he plastered on a wounded expression and snapped back loudly, trying to regain control. "What nonsense! You're the one who brushed up against me. You tried to flirt, failed, and now you're throwing a tantrum. His voice rose even louder, echoing over mine. Come on, everyone knows she's been trying to sleep her way up. I've heard all about her. Staying late at night, trying to seduce Mr. Finkelstein. Now she's setting her sights on me. Pathetic. Laughter rippled through the crowd. Uneasy, forced, but there. In 3 sentences, he'd painted me as a shameless gold digger. You're disgusting. I shot back, shaking with rage. You're greasy, talentless, and your teeth look like corn kernels. Who the hell would ever try to seduce you? You harass women and then try to blame them for it? You're the one who should be fired. He sneered, lips curling. Oh really? You want to talk about climbing ladders? He turned to the crowd. Tell me this. How does someone like her get hired here in the first place? I checked around. Someone pulled strings for her. Someone important. He narrowed his eyes at me. Lilith Hillenberg, are you really going to pretend that's not true? My throat went dry. I couldn't answer. And in that silence, I could feel the air shift. My coworker's eyes turned from sympathy to suspicion. I'll report this, he spat. Let's see how long you last here, you cheap little fraud. I clenched my fists, biting back the urge to scream. I couldn't drag Clifford into this. Not now, not when I was about to leave anyway. Just then someone from HR appeared at the door, calling out, All right, everyone, let's move. Company meeting. Conference hall. The crowd slowly dispersed. I slipped into the large meeting room and sat in the very back corner, invisible. The first half of the meeting was a blur. Performance summaries, year-end statistics, applause at all the right moments. I didn't hear a word of it. My mind was a storm. Then came the announcements for the annual gala. The host was doing their best to lighten the mood, encouraging everyone to sign up for performances. To warm up the room, Clifford Finkelstein, seated at the head table, immaculate as ever, took out his phone and told his assistant to send out red packets in the company chat. In seconds, the dull air of the room exploded with excitement. Phones chimed non-stop. Whoa! I got $100. Mr. Finkelstein, you're the best. Even I couldn't help glancing at my screen when the notification popped up. Then, amid the chatter, someone gasped. Wait. Did Mr. Finkelstein just change his profile picture? Heads turned. Phones lifted. That was strange. He'd used the same black cat icon for years. Curious. I opened his profile too. And froze. A woman's photo filled the screen. He'd changed it to a selfie. Not just any selfie. Over-smoothed skin, fake filter sparkles, eyes 3 times bigger than normal. So edited that even my own mother wouldn't recognize it. It was me. The murmur in the conference room grew louder by the second. People leaned in, whispering, eyes glued to their phones. No way. Did Mr. Finkelstein really change his profile picture to a woman's photo? Is that his girlfriend? Who is she? Could it be a celebrity he likes? I asked ChatGPT. She's definitely not a celebrity. Wait. Why does she look kind of familiar? Panic surged through me like cold water down my spine. Before anyone could connect the dots between that ridiculously airbrushed photo and the real me, I had to get out. Fast. I turned on my heel and made for the door. Only to freeze when I heard my name. Lilith Hillenberg, don't move. The voice boomed across the room. It was that sleazy, bald manager. Vice President Zhang. I want to report Lilith Hillenberg for sleeping her way into the company. The room went silent again. That bastard. He hadn't taken the public humiliation well and was clearly out for revenge. No matter the cost. This woman, he bellowed, tried to seduce me. When I turned her down, she humiliated me in public. She's a disgrace to this company. I demand a full investigation. The gossip wheel spun violently, and in an instant, every eye in the room was on me. I felt exposed, like I'd been stripped bare and thrown into the town square. Just when I thought the pressure might crush me, a voice rang out from the stage. Cool. Steady. Unshakably firm. I brought her in. The entire room turned to the front. Clifford Finkelstein was standing, microphone in hand. The air froze. No one dared to breathe. The bald manager's oily face twisted in disbelief. Clifford continued, voice clear and calm through the speakers. Lilith Hillenberg did not enter this company through the usual recruitment channels. I personally recommended her to HR. Murmurs rippled through the crowd. This decision violated our standard hiring procedures. It was a breach of protocol. And it was my mistake. I take full responsibility. He gave a small nod, then shifted gears without missing a beat. As penalty, I will personally cover the cost of gifting every employee a new smartphone as a bonus this year. A beat of silence. Then the room erupted. Cheers. Applause. Who cared about company policy when free phones were involved? The same co-workers who had been whispering about me moments ago were now grinning ear to ear, eyes lit with greed. But before the euphoria could settle in, Clifford's assistant rushed to his side, whispering something urgently in his ear. His expression darkened instantly. Without a word, he stepped down from the stage and walked straight toward me, not looking at me, but instead locking eyes with the bald manager who had gone pale. Regarding the allegation of sexual harassment against a female employee, Clifford said, his voice like ice over steel, I am now initiating an official internal investigation. I've already contacted the police. Legal will begin retrieving surveillance footage from the past 3 months immediately. If anyone here has relevant information, please report directly to me or the legal team. Your confidentiality is guaranteed. Then, with a simple gesture toward security, he added, escort him to the waiting room. He can wait for the authorities there. The manager collapsed into a stammering mess, begging, but the guards were already dragging him out. Everyone sat frozen, unable to process the avalanche of power moves they just witnessed. Until, quietly, someone muttered, wait, doesn't the woman in Mr. Finkelstein's new profile picture kind of look like Lilith Hillenberg? A domino fell. Now that they were staring at it, my overly filtered selfie and my real face, it was impossible to unsee. Clifford had personally brought me in, defended me, exposed himself to company scrutiny. The narrative clicked together in everyone's minds like a well-scripted drama. And the gossip fire roared to life. At the center of it all, Clifford Finkelstein seemed entirely unaware of the chaos he'd unleashed. Without a word, he reached out and took my hand. His palm was broad and warm. My brain short-circuited. Too much. Today was just too much. Come, he said simply. We're going to the station to finish your statement. By the time we left the police station, the city was wrapped in night. Clifford drove me home in silence. The kind of silence that buzzed in your ears. I glanced at him, his jaw was tight, his knuckles pale as they gripped the wheel. I wanted to say something, anything, to ease the tension. But every time I opened my mouth, his expression made me think better of it. When we finally pulled up in front of my building, he parked and got out with me. The hallway lights flickered, casting long thin shadows as we climbed the stairs side by side. I hesitated, then broke the silence. Mr. Finkelstein. Thank you for what you did today. Not just for standing up for me, but also for calling the police. He stopped walking. Then after a pause without looking at me, he asked quietly, do you have to keep calling me that? Clifford Finkelstein looked at me like I'd just broken his heart. I was stunned. Wait, what did I even say? Seeing I wasn't replying, he took a step closer, tone laced with sarcasm and something strangely pitiful. So what now? You're not even going to let me inside. What was with this passive-aggressive energy? Bewildered, I stepped aside and let him into the apartment. He walked straight to my tiny couch, sat down without a word, and transformed into a silent storm cloud. Cold, heavy and brooding, like a sculpture sculpted in frustration. I stood there awkwardly for a moment before retreating to the kitchen. Maybe he was still upset about the way I'd spoken to him earlier? Trying to be nice, I poured him a cup of tea, walked over, and even bent slightly with what I thought was the gentlest smile I could muster. Mr. Finkelstein, here's your tea. He glanced up, expression darkening further. Lilith, are you trying to piss me off? What? Was he impossible to please or what? He suddenly stood and strode over to the window, facing away from me. Another long stretch of silence passed before he finally spoke again, voice low and thick. My secretary, and the assistants outside my office. I had them all reassigned. Those positions are filled with men now. Wait, was he talking to me? Was this a company update? I changed my profile picture, he added. Switched to the 9-key keyboard, too. Still learning. Watched a few episodes of that. Crayon something. The one you like. He rattled all of this off in a rush, words tumbling out one after another, none of which made any real sense to me. Then he turned abruptly, voice shaking slightly with intensity. Lilith, if there's something I'm doing wrong, just tell me. I can change. But don't just sentence me to death without even giving me a chance to fix it. Wait, what? My brain scrambled to connect the dots. Was he talking about the whole keyboard and generation gap thing I joked about last night? Suddenly, he stormed across the room and pulled me into a hug, burying his face into the crook of my shoulder. Plop. A warm drop hit the floor. No, that wasn't. Was that a tear? Did I just make Clifford Finkelstein cry? Panicked, I hurriedly hugged him back. No, I didn't mean it. I wasn't sentencing you to death. I was just talking nonsense. Then why are you calling me Mr. Finkelstein? His voice came out muffled, thick with emotion and nasal from crying. Wait, that's what he was upset about. Sudden realization hit me like a brick. Oh, Clifford. Not that one. Babe. MHM. Only then did he relax, rubbing his cheek gently against my neck like a giant wounded puppy. I was now 90% sure Clifford Finkelstein had either taken the wrong meds, or was possessed by something far too affectionate to be human. That damn tarot card, that stupid pig trotter, and that cursed keyboard. Each word ground out of his teeth like he was chewing glass. You broke up with me over those things. It hurt. Drip. Another tear hit the floor. I thought those ridiculous reasons that had nothing to do with him, would make our breakup seem painless, like a light-hearted exit from a fake relationship. I never imagined they'd cut this deep. God, I was awful. I'm sorry. I'm so sorry. I stammered. None of those reasons were real. I made them up. I was just trying to wrap things up, like your mother asked. The moment the words left my mouth, I knew I'd messed up. What did you just say? He lifted his head, eyes clouded with confusion. Say it again. I avoided his gaze, but his voice grew firmer, louder, that commanding tone no one ever dared ignore. I had no choice but to spill everything. How Madame Finkelstein had approached me a year ago, how she offered money in exchange for dating him, how she recently pushed me to break it off, fast. I'm really sorry. I lost my head over the money. I was wrong. I know I was wrong. I've never regretted anything more in my life. I blurted it all out, breathless with panic, trying to explain my twisted logic. I thought you were so reluctant to be with me in the first place. If I used reasons that had nothing to do with you, it wouldn't hurt as much when I left. I trailed off, staring at the floor, ashamed beyond words. You think, he interrupted me, voice hoarse and tight, I'm the kind of man who would agree to date someone I don't love? Just because it's convenient? Clifford Finkelstein looked straight into my eyes, steady, unwavering, cutting through every excuse I'd ever tried to give. No one can force me to do anything, he said clearly and slowly. Unless it's someone I love. Unless it's someone I love. My cheeks instantly flushed. My heart thundered so hard in my chest, it felt like it was trying to claw its way out. So, was he saying he loved me? I was still struggling to grasp the weight of those words when I saw his eyes again, rimmed with red. The light in them dimmed, clouded over with something heavier than sadness. So you were with me, just to fulfill my mother's request? He asked, voice hollow. Not even for a second. Did you ever love me? His beautiful eyes brimmed with tears, on the verge of spilling. I'd seen Clifford Finkelstein composed and brilliant, calm and logical. I'd seen him soft, patient, even annoyed. But I had never seen him like this. Vulnerable, devastated, lost. No! I practically shouted, reaching up to wipe his tears. But he jerked back like I'd burned him, pain and despair carved into his face. Desperate, I copied his earlier tone, raising my voice with defiance. Then what about me? You think I'm the type of person who would chase after someone I don't even like? Because of money? Put in all that effort, just to get close to them? You are. His reply was immediate. Blunt. Merciless. Okay. Fine. You leave me no choice. I stopped trying to explain. Instead, I grabbed his arms, catching him off guard. In one swift motion, I cupped his face, rose on tiptoe and kissed him hard. It was desperate and fierce, full of all the unspoken emotions I'd been shoving down for far too long. In the past, I'd only dared to give him light kisses, tentative and brief, always reminding myself this wasn't real, that we were just acting. Anytime it felt too real, too close, I'd retreat. Because I was afraid. But not now. For once, I didn't stop myself. I didn't tell myself I couldn't fall in love. I had fallen. And this time, I kissed him with everything I had. Clifford stiffened for just a moment. Then he seized control, kissing me back like a man starved, like someone who thought he'd lost everything and suddenly got it all back. We melted into each other, a tangle of longing and relief, of need and rediscovery. I felt like I could drown in the heat of his embrace. Only when I was breathless did I push him away, gasping for air. Can you forgive me now? I asked between gulps. But instead of answering, he brushed his thumb over my kiss-swollen lips and whispered, voice rough. Not yet. Huh. Before I could question it, he grabbed my wrist and pulled me toward the bedroom. The door clicked shut. Locked. He pushed me down onto the bed and slowly, deliberately, unfastened his watch. The metal band clinked as it landed on the nightstand. Then came his cufflinks. Then the first second button of his shirt. Then, his collarbone. His chest. His sculpted abs. All on full display. My eyes went wide. I almost forgot to breathe, let alone act composed. He leaned down, his breath hot against my ear. Voice low. Dangerous. You'll find out soon enough. This is your punishment for being greedy. And yeah, I definitely found out what he meant. Extra. In the end, I still left Clifford Finkelstein's company. I handed in my resignation myself. He didn't try to stop me. I did break protocol, he said calmly, seated in his office. I bypassed the recruitment process to bring you in. And no matter how well you perform here, everyone will always say it's because of me. That's not fair to you. I nodded. He always saw right through me, straight to what mattered most. What are you planning next? He asked. Is there a type of job you want? Or have you thought about studying again? I hesitated before whispering. I've always wanted to go to grad school. But I'm scared I won't get in. And I'm scared. Scared of what? That I'll end up in a different city. What if I'm too far from you? Clifford gently ruffled my hair, his voice soft and warm. I'll miss you. I'll miss you terribly, he said. But if it's what you want, go. I'll support you. No matter where you are. And just like that, my future felt clearer. But there was still one more thing. The last and maybe the trickiest hurdle. The contract between me and Madame Finkelstein. Clifford Finkelstein admitted that, yes, his mother had indeed arranged a blind date for him with Lorraine Isaac. But he'd asked to meet her beforehand and laid it all out plainly. He already had someone he loved deeply. She wasn't mad? I asked, nervous. Mad. Clifford actually chuckled. She was thrilled. Turns out, she's been secretly in love with a younger guy from her college band. She even asked me for advice on how to chase him. I lit up instantly, thumping my chest. Please. You have to introduce her to me next time. I'm basically a professional when it comes to chasing people. I'll teach her everything I know. We laughed, we teased, And then Clifford dropped another bombshell. He wanted me to come home with him, to officially meet his parents. Standing in front of the imposing Finkelstein family estate, my palms were slick with sweat. His father opened the door, a refined, kind-looking man with a warm smile. "Come in, come in." But the moment Madame Finkelstein saw me, her face darkened like a thundercloud. I took a deep breath. No matter what, I was going to be honest, respectful, and sincere. Dinner was tense. The kind of silence you could slice with a knife. Finally, I put down my chopsticks, gathered every ounce of courage and said, "Auntie, I'm sorry. I've broken the terms of our agreement. I can't complete your request anymore. I've transferred all the money back to your account. But please, just give me a chance to prove." "What agreement?" she interrupted, blinking in utter confusion. "What money? I have no idea what you're talking about." Clifford's father looked over, suspicious. "What's going on?" Without missing a beat, Madame Finkelstein flashed the fakest, most exaggerated smile I'd ever seen in my life. "Oh, Lilith, sweetheart. You must have me confused with someone else. This is the first time we've met, right?" She laughed a little too loudly. "You're adorable. Old Finkelstein and I already adore you. As long as you're good to Clifford, that's all we care about. Ha ha ha." I sat there in stunned silence, whiplashed by her 360-degree emotional pivot. I turned to Clifford for help, only to see his head lowered, shoulders shaking from suppressed laughter. Meanwhile, Madame Finkelstein was busy shooting me frantic side-eye. "Stop talking. Just go with it." I swallowed my confusion, forced a smile, and played along. "Yes, of course. Silly me. Must have been a mix-up. First time meeting, yes." After dinner, Clifford walked me home. We stopped outside my building, and I pulled out my keys, ready to go inside. But he caught my hand. "What is it?" I asked. "You're planning to study for grad school, right?" "Yeah." "It's intense. You'll need a quiet environment. And someone to make sure you stay on track." He spoke like he was reading straight from a research article. "Okay," I said warily. He took a step closer and pressed a key into my palm. "So, I'm formally requesting that you move in with me. I'll be your personal study supervisor." Live together? How was I supposed to study with his face in front of me every day? I opened my mouth to protest, but he held up his phone and showed me a transaction record. "My mom said she transferred back all the money you returned to her. Then doubled it. She says, thank you. For making sure her son wouldn't grow old alone." "She didn't have to," I mumbled, eyes locked on that very large number. Suddenly, all my righteous indignation evaporated.